Live from Hertfordshire in England by former ministerial aide Leon Emirali. Leon, thank you so much for joining me here today on A News.
Good evening.
Now, the situation across the United Kingdom, across all the countries of the United Kingdom, has been disturbing to everyone, not least, I'm sure, to yourselves. I'd understood before today that there were just 4 tiers available in England for lockdown measures, but now we just heard of a 5th tier. What does this mean?
Well, effectively, the entire country now is under a lockdown, and it's similar to the lockdown that we saw in March when the pandemic first sort of took grip. So what we're seeing now is swathes of the entire country, England, as well as Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, back into that state of lockdown. So that means non-essential shops have to shut. It means that everyone is being advised to stay at home. And the reason for that is because we've got a surge in coronavirus cases. We're looking at in excess of 50,000 new positive cases each day, which is incredibly worrying for everyone involved, and in particular ensuring that the National Health Service in the UK is able to cope with this rise in infections.
And of course, as you just mentioned, one of the main concerns has been the NHS being overwhelmed. What is the current situation? Have the Nightingale hospitals, for example, been brought back into operation?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are, in particular, strain in the south of the United Kingdom, in and around London. There is particular pressure on hospitals. And as you say, Nightingale hospitals that were set up earlier in the pandemic to create this sort of surge capacity have been put back on standby and potentially back into use if and when they're needed. And realistically, if the UK continues on this trajectory, we may see a very worrying time for the NHS, and that is why the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has chosen to act in such a way. Clearly, he doesn't want to see businesses shutting. He doesn't want to see the strain that lockdowns have on people's mental health. But clearly, the numbers are worrying, and there has to be capacity within the NHS to cope. And that's obviously the aim of this particular lockdown.
It's quite understandable that Boris Johnson has tried to keep as much activity going as possible in the United Kingdom, particularly in terms of education. And again, he promised to try and keep schools open, but now even the schools have been more heavily affected, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, Andy, and I think that there has been a moment over time, a big discussion in the UK about whether to keep schools open. It's understood that children are fairly low risk in terms of transmitting the disease, but then, of course, there are teachers who you have to think about, and in many ways, I think this is a difficult issue because we want to see schools open. I think every country wants to see young people in classrooms and learning, but ultimately the decision has been taken that to keep teachers safe, to keep parents safe and children safe, the decision's been made to shut schools. And there are exams around the corner in the UK too. There is a lot of uncertainty around whether those exams are going to be going ahead or not. But ultimately, we go back to where we were in March, which saw schools shut. That's difficult for many reasons, not least because a lot of parents, working parents, now have to think about childcare, having to work from home and also look after their children from home. So it isn't an easy situation by any means, but I think it seems to be the decision's been taken that it's the right thing to do.
Well, everyone's trying to make the best of what they can. Now, I'm curious, here in Turkey, my son is at home, he's doing his lessons from home. Is there a strong online system for children to continue their education during this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think schools deserve a tremendous amount of credit for how they've been able to adapt to enable children to continue learning at home. It isn't easy for teachers, for parents or anyone in this situation, but they have adapted incredibly well, deserve a lot of credit. And there is an online system in a lot of schools where children are learning remotely, but it isn't the same as being in the classroom. I think we all know that, but it's making the best of a bad scenario, and hopefully it won't go on much longer.
You mentioned the exams earlier. I was hearing some suggestions that the O and A levels, which are the exams that children take at the upper end of their school, which give them the choice of their jobs, their careers, their universities, very important exams, that they might be cancelled. Does that seem like a likely probability now?
I think so. In many ways, it is going to be a another difficult exam period following the earlier exams that were meant to take place in the summer that were disrupted. And it looks likely, if schools remain shut for another 1, 2, 3 months, that we may well see those exams postponed or cancelled as well. And as I say, it's a difficult time for young people. They want that certainty. They want to move on to the next phase of their lives once they leave school. But at the minute, I'm afraid it looks as though they may well have to wait and be patient as the government formulate their response around exams. But my hope is that the government are able to come up with a solution quickly and communicate that effectively to schools and to students accordingly.
Well, let's looking forward to the future in a different way. Obviously, with everyone's looking for a way out of this, and the vaccines began with the Pfizer vaccine a few weeks ago. I think almost exactly 3 weeks ago, was online. I know because my father, who's in England, is expecting his second jab tomorrow or on Thursday. How are the vaccinations proceeding, and what hope is there that they will bring things back to normality in the near future?
Well, in the Prime Minister's address yesterday, I think there was a bit of an offer of a silver lining, which is that the vaccine is so close to being rolled out en masse. And as you say, Andy, your father receiving the jab, many others receiving the vaccination, and hopefully there is going to be a widespread rollout of this vaccine before long. It isn't going to be easy. I mean, we're looking at vaccinating potentially 1 or 2 million people each week, and that is going to be a Herculean effort to make sure that happens. But ultimately, unlike the previous lockdowns in March and in November, we do have that carrot at the end of the line, which says if we stick to these rules, if we make our sacrifices during this lockdown, there is the opportunity to get back to normal life once this vaccine is rolled out. And again, I think the UK deserves a lot of credit. Oxford University vaccination, one of the first to market, and also those from other countries and organisations. And that really is the bit of silver light edging people towards a slightly better future, something to be optimistic about, which I think we all need.
Well, absolutely. Now, we know that the British are famous for coming together in times of crisis, but there's a mixture, I imagine, of frustration and concern as well as hope at the moment. How is the British public responding to these new lockdowns?
Well, I think en masse, the British public are fairly tired. We're tired of this situation, as all countries are that are going through this pandemic. But ultimately, there is a realisation that we must pull together, abide by these rules. There's a very simple message now. We've scrapped the sort of tier system. We've gone to a full lockdown. It's clear what everyone needs to do. And the government communicating that through their mantra of stay at home, protect the NHS and save lives. And that really now is encapsulating what the British public want to do. I think there is a lot of goodwill towards frontline responders, especially those working in our NHS and now indeed teachers, a lot of sympathy to those frontline public sector workers. And realistically now, I think the British public, like you say, are going to have to pull together, grit their teeth, and eventually hope that there is a way out of this as the vaccination comes to fruition in the coming months.
Well, Leon Emirali, let's hope that things draw to a close sooner rather than later and nobody looks for a Tier 6. Thank you so much for joining me here today on A News.
Thank you.